Storytelling gets you as far as 3 meetings.
This next generation of European founders are going to be creating things that we couldn't even imagine today.
The pace of innovation is going really, really fast. The current trend is forcing founders to be hyper efficient with smaller teams, extreme velocity, and proving their market opportunity faster than ever before. We are going to have a huge positive impact on mankind.
Hi, I'm Tom Guinness and welcome to the Raising Europe podcast. Here we go behind the scenes with the people building the future of European tech. Today we welcome Lorenzo Franzi to the show. Lorenzo is the founding partner of Italian Founders Fund, a pre-seed and seed stage fund that backs founders with Italian ties in Italy and abroad. If you want to see where the Italian tech ecosystem is going, you don't want to miss this.
I'm Lorenzo Franzi. I'm the founding partner of Italian Founders Fund. I recently started a venture capital fund based here in Milan. We help Italian founders and international founders with Italian ties to grow their companies, raise capital from us and other investors. And we try to support them with the help of our community to grow their company and help bring the Italian tech ecosystem more on the map.
Amazing. So if you can tell us a little bit more about your story, how did you become a VC and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, sure. So I was born in a quite entrepreneurial family. So creating companies, running companies, and also seeing companies fail and succeed was part of my upbringing and also part of the conversations we had at family gatherings and generally with friends and family. So I came into VC by actually being an entrepreneur and being a founder. So I created a startup called Zipjet, which was a household services company where we picked up and delivered dry cleaning and laundry. Think about Glovo or Deliveroo bringing those products and services to your home.
I was a customer.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I hope that was a great experience.
It was in London, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I was a customer. I used it a lot as a banker because I had no time. So it was great for things like dry cleaning.
Indeed. So Zipjet was started in London. Then we had a lot of our team in Berlin. And we rapidly expanded the company to Paris. So all different ecosystems were similar to you, people with limited time, getting quite used to convenience and seeing quite a lot of innovative startups and products being offered to them. And so we saw the opportunity after seeing transport with, for example, ride hailing or delivery services with food delivery and grocery delivery being transformed. We thought basically the home will be the next frontier. And so I had a strong conviction into that and basically decided to found Zipjet to solve that particular mission. And that's then how I started to really be involved with the venture ecosystem and the venture capital ecosystem. We raised capital for Zipjet from the very beginning. So the first capital came from the Rocket Internet Group.
Yeah.
And from there on, I got to know quite a lot of venture capital investors and other types of investors across Europe. So I was an entrepreneur for 5 years and learned a lot from those exchanges with VC funds. And at the end of the journey, after we exited Zipjet, I had a long thought, what I want to be, how could I contribute to the next sort of project? And I had noticed that very few investors I had exchanged with in Europe had been entrepreneurs before. And in the fundraising journey of Zipjet, venture capital investors who had been through the journey really had made a difference on mine as an entrepreneur.
Right.
And we could see it, constantly, even on our board. We had a few investors who had entrepreneurial experience and a few who hadn't. And when you, especially in the more difficult times, it really made a huge difference. And so that plus the fact that through time, I had the opportunity to angel invest in other startups and support other entrepreneurs in their journey. The combination of those two factors led to a quite obvious decision at that time to also become an investor. And Oliver, the founder of Rocket Internet, gave me the chance to do so in the venture capital fund, Global Founders Capital.
Right. And so what investments have you been part of since joining as a VC?
So my investments have been part of sort of three chapters in VC. First, when I was an angel investor, then in my journey with Global Founders Capital, and then more recently since creating Italian Founders Fund. And my first investment was actually in a schoolmate at business school, she went back to Canada after we finished a program to build her company there called NWear. And I got to know her personally really well through our journey at business school and got really convinced she could be a tremendous entrepreneur. And I decided to do a small angel check, which ended up being a great success story. And that led me to really be excited by the opportunity to angel invest. With Global Founders Capital, it was all about founders, but crazy ambition and also very ambitious speed and willingness to break things and go fast. And Rocket Internet and GFC are famous to sort of back very ambitious entrepreneurs. And so it was very interesting because when I was covering Southern Europe, I met the team of Sibyl, Mattia and Lorenzo and Dario, and they were executing a vision that I hadn't seen in Italy, with an ambition, an international playing field experience, and a pace which I hadn't seen. So that was my sort of first investment into Italy, and really led me to see that we could have great opportunities in this ecosystem too. Then when we shifted to Italian Founders Fund, the first investment actually we did with IFF was in Marco and Francesco in 𝐤𝐴𝐻, which has become a very talked about sort of company into the ecosystem, and they have been performing great and building a great product that many startups, entrepreneurs, but also larger companies couldn't live without anymore by doing their sort of payroll. And I would say these are sort of three important investments for me because they reflect three chapters of my transition into becoming a VC.
So what's your mission with IFF?
So with IFF, our mission is really to support the next generation of entrepreneurs building the companies and the outcomes that they strive for. And on the other hand, we strive to return multiple times the capital that our investors entrusted us with. So this is the dual mission we have with IFF. And if I look underneath on the personal side of myself and the whole IFF team, we really want to be the supporters, the sparring partners of this next generation of entrepreneurs.
Right. And so when it comes to investing through IFF, what type of investments do you look for? What kind of size, region, area, segment, all those sort of things?
So Italian Founders Fund invests in three verticals. We'll invest in Italian companies. We'll invest in Italian founders globally. And we'll invest in foreign companies entering Italy.
Entering Italy.
So we say Italian Founders Fund invests in founders with Italian ties. Some very deep, some lighter. We invest from a stage perspective from pre-seed to Series A, late Series A. We are a 100 million fund, and we like to really back founders and entrepreneurs from the early stages. And that's what we try to do as much as we can. So we invest strictly in tech. And within that, especially sort of software and AI are our two biggest focus categories. We try to stay a bit more distant sometimes of biotech, which comes our way as well. So except if it's very data-driven, we wouldn't touch that. On ticket size, we will invest from around 250,000 euros in a pre-seed check where we are a follower investor to potentially leading an investment with up to a 2 to 3 million check in a late seed or a Series A round.
Right. And where do you think the biggest opportunities are to invest in right now?
So we see from an ecosystem perspective, we see a huge shift of great talent in Italy going from more traditional careers into taking risks and building startups. So we see it as an extraordinary moment to leverage the quality of entrepreneurial skills that I think Italy has demonstrated through many, many years, but maybe in more traditional industries, to see that entrepreneurial drive and talent finally build in the tech and digital world from Italy. So we're very excited to be at the center of that and seeing especially the engineering talent building or joining very ambitious startups here. From a topic perspective, AI is very central to our portfolio and the opportunities that we see. From very ambitious and quite extreme infrastructure AI sort of investments that we do mostly in Italian founders in the US. So there'll still be a wave of talent that relocated mostly to sort of San Francisco to build this type of infrastructure AI companies. Though we have a great company in Rome as well doing this. And then we see a lot of our portfolio companies and other opportunities building companies on the back of AI-enabled processes, technology, team structures, and a new way of a new architecture of companies that are built with different sort of building blocks. If we think about Italy, Italy is known to be sometimes slower or more bureaucratic, more lengthy in its processes and its laws and its regulations, in the amount of paperwork you need to do. And what's incredible from supporting startups today is that AI is flattening that massively. So I think not only is AI a huge technology opportunity and most likely the biggest shift that we have seen for the last few years, it is also one that speaks to strengthening the Italian sort of tech ecosystem, and we're very excited by that. So we are excited by the combination of engineering talent, building ambitious sort of frontier AI technology, but also seeing business models which traditionally would be SaaS business models being built through AI at a pace and an impact that we have never seen before.
What's the main factor driving this rapid growth of new businesses here in Italy? Is it mainly young people? Is it people leaving existing workforces? Is it researchers deciding it's now easy to go commercialize their concepts? What exactly is it? Or is it a confluence of factors?
So I think it's a mix of factors. I think you've got an amazing young generation of Italian talent that has studied and maybe built first years of experience with influences that we wouldn't see before. So what do I mean by that is Italy used to be a bit more closed up with its information flow, its education system being mostly local, whereas younger generations have been exposed to way more global content reaching them. And that changed the mindset. There's really been, in my mind, a mindset shift in young Italian entrepreneurs. And that to us is incredibly exciting, and we think it's there to last.
Given how so much has changed since the advent of mass adoption of AI, what's one belief you had at the start of your investing career that you now think is completely wrong?
So initially, I thought that the amount of money you raised would really have a huge differentiator impact on your chances of success. What I've seen over time, and maybe even more recently, is that it can steer you really in the wrong direction. And I think especially with AI, where teams can be leaner, resources even more efficiently used than before, it is important to raise the amount of money really proportional to the outcome or to the journey you're on, and not per se the biggest round will be the biggest likelihood of success.
How do you think today's market environment is impacting the next generation of European talent?
I think the current trend is forcing founders to be hyper efficient with smaller teams, extreme velocity, and proving their market opportunity faster than ever before.
Hey everyone, taking a quick break from today's episode. If hosting Raising Europe has taught me one thing, it's that a founder's real job is in resource management, balancing your cash, your time, and your team's focus. That's exactly why we built Frontier Stack, so your business can grow faster and spend smarter. You get access to the growth stacks the top founders across our ecosystem are already using to outpace the market, giving you preferential access to Tier 1 tools and services like Airwalix's competitive FX rates, Whisper Flow's productivity suite, and Velocity PPC's incredible paid advertising engine. Stop guessing and grow faster. Head over to getfrontierstack.com right now. Join the waitlist and lock in your priority access pass so you can grow faster and spend smarter. That's getfrontierstack.com.
This next generation of European founders are going to be creating things that we couldn't even imagine today. What do you think the new thing is going to be?
I think the pace of innovation is going really, really fast. And I think that certain sectors, especially in health, longevity, or energy, are going to show us innovation that we haven't imagined before, and that are going to have a huge positive impact on mankind.
So what's one bold prediction about the future that you have that no one else has?
So I think there's going to be a return to artisanship, craftsmanship, in-person sort of exchanges, which AI is going to help make more efficient, maybe make profitable where it couldn't be before. But I think we're going to see a combination of extreme efficiency, extreme tech-driven innovation with AI, but also a return to more traditional skills and craftsmanship and in-person gatherings that we maybe saw less in the recent times.
Right. And so when we think about sourcing and winning these deals, how do you win these deals as an investor in today's market?
So we continue to put the founder very much at the heart of everything we do. And ultimately, the relationship with the founding team is critical. And supporting them through their journey remains also what we focus on. And what I mean by that is ultimately co-founder relationships, hiring, team harmony, challenges, wins, failures from an execution perspective, competition, winning certain fights, etc., are going to stay there in the execution. And we try to remain very focused and close to our founders along the journey. And therefore, to win, we continue to sort of be willing to put the people at the heart, staying very close to the technological evolution that is happening and making sure that we and our founders know what really good looks like and what's the ambition, what's the pace, what's the reference into their competition. That is very important for them to know, but we try to keep the human at the center.
Right. And so what additional value does IFF add rather than just capital?
So we've built a very exhaustive community. It's a very unique community of our investors, supporters, sparring partners that are all available to support our portfolio companies. So we engage very actively the different members of our community with each other. So that means our portfolio founders can always tap into that community and that network to benefit from their experience, from their knowledge, from the skills. And on the other hand, they always have a sounding board to test their ideas. So we think that exchange and triggering a lot of moments of exchange is very important. So we host a lot of events. We try to bring the different members of our community together as frequently as we can. And we think that's ultimately a real differentiator.
And so how data-driven is the team?
So we are a combination of very personal and sort of human capital-driven fund with a very data and technology-driven processes. So we constantly build our own infrastructure, which is fed with all of our data from our portfolio, from the opportunities we look at, and obviously from all the public data sources we can gather. And with all of that, plus our own strategy, our own learnings, the conclusions from the exchanges we have as a team, the many references we will get, we're trying to create a unique data set, a unique perspective to come to our conclusions and find, select, and invest in companies with a mix of that very data-driven approach, keeping the human factor very central too.
So what's your framework for identifying a must-back company?
So for us, it's when the genius part or the real innovation part suddenly becomes evidence. And so while during our exchanges with the founders, our process of analyzing the opportunity or doing references, suddenly we get hit by the same reality that the founders get hit, and their vision and ambition become evidence to us. That's really when our decision-making framework starts to be all green and we really want to go ahead with an investment.
How do you know you've hit one of those aha moments of genius? You know, how intangible is it, or is it tangible?
It's actually very intangible.
Yeah.
It's hard to quantify it. We try. We've built a lot of tech internally to give outcomes, ratings, etc. But ultimately, in a discussion, in a long and deep exchange with our investment committee, it will hit. And maybe not everyone, but most of us will see that. And that's where we know we need to do that particular investment.
Right. So when you think about investing and backing management teams, what are the non-negotiables? Like, what do they have to have?
So we think urgency and a need for speed is very, very important. We think they need to be willing to move mountains and have shown that they can before, whatever shape that can take. And we think that basics like integrity is absolutely non-negotiable. So we will not take a bet on someone who we don't think tick those different boxes.
Right. And when I think about someone who can move incredibly quickly, aware that you've backed the folks at Cato with Andreas Orzetto, he's someone who moves incredibly quickly and has moved mountains before. Is that the kind of prototypical founder that you look for?
Yes, if you look at Andrea and the team, you see clarity of vision and execution, clear communication, and a proven track record and reputation for the core skills that we look for. So for us, Cato was a really sort of obvious investment to do once we had finished our process also on the model side.
Amazing. So when you think about founders who have great storytelling skill, how do you distinguish that from real substance?
So we think storytelling gets you as far as 3 meetings.
3 meetings.
So usually at the third or after the third, the story starts to be less consistent if it doesn't have the fundamentals. And especially today where many video calls or meetings have very detailed transcripts and notes and or even recordings, you can look through that faster than before.
Right. So, and what's the process for investment at IFF? How many rounds do founders typically go through before getting the green light from IC?
So every process usually starts with a first call where we map the opportunity, we try to understand the profiles of the founders, the business model, and then we'll go anywhere from a second and a third call to then usually have our due diligence process where we go in different length depending on the size of the opportunity and the complexity of the business model and how familiar we are with it. But usually it would be reaching around 4 to 6 interactions with us. That can be as fast as in a couple of weeks' time. And we would come to a conclusion. Some processes are faster. So when we, for example, do smaller follower checks in Italians abroad, for example, when they are in YC, there we tend to be able to decide within a couple of exchanges, and usually only a few days we're able to take a decision.
Right, so it kind of depends on where the founder is in their journey at the time.
And it depends also of the role we take. So in Italy, we're going to be usually a lead or a co-lead investor, and we're going to put a lot of the effort to know the founding team, the business model, and the opportunity in a lot of detail, because we will want to back the founders with an important check and continue to co-invest into the company over the next rounds. With Italian founders abroad, we tend to be usually smaller investors, follower investors, and we also, in those situations, have the chance to leverage the work that the lead investors will have done, and so our process is lighter and faster.
You know, let's say everything goes well, you get the green light as a founder. What's IFF's framework for sizing and pricing rounds as a lead investor?
Sizing and pricing rounds in venture, especially in pre-seed and early seed, is sometimes more magic than science. But what we always try to do is we try to work bottom up with the founders in what's the amount of capital they think they will need to have a runway that we think is long enough. So the real minimum for us is 18 months, and we'll potentially go as far as 30 months of runway. And from that, we define sort of the amount of money raised. And we try to keep a good balance in what is a healthy cap table, depending also on the future capital needs we think the founders will have. And we try to balance those different elements and ultimately put it forward into an offer to the founders.
Right. And when it comes to the valuation, how does that work?
So the valuation is usually a consequence of the amount of money raised for us and what level of dilution we think is the right dilution. So that's when we are very early into a process. Maybe it's the first real funding round of a company. We tend to do it that way. If we are at slightly later stages of a company, we'll usually also have some reference levels, peer levels, and try to reference our own estimate also to what the competitive process might be. But again, it's hard to give a very clear framework on valuation because every situation is really different and we try to adapt every time.
And when it comes to investing in Italy, how is it different to investing in other geographies?
So Italy is catching up to other geographies. So that means that the maturity of the ecosystem is a little bit behind, which means that, for example, contracts, tools to manage cap tables, waterfalls, third-party providers like lawyers, etc., don't yet have the critical mass of transactions that other ecosystems have reached. And so Italy is always a little bit more bespoke, a little bit slower and less standardized than other more advanced ecosystems. But this is changing very quickly. And many actors, us and many others and service providers are doing a great effort to standardize more and more and reduce those times and differences very quickly.
Of all the companies you backed so far, which one felt like the biggest gamble at the time?
So the biggest gamble I've done was in one of my angel investments before being a professional investor in a company called NWear in Canada. And the outcome and the speed at which the outcome was generated was way faster than before. Joanna and the team managed to exit the company to a strategic buyer at very good terms very quickly, following an amazing execution. And it was a great example for many of the founders I've been supporting since.
Right, and why was it such a big gamble?
It was a big gamble because it was going into a consumer product in a new category that wasn't existing before, and very few people believed in it. And she was extremely stubborn in a positive way that this evolution had to happen, and she made it happen.
What made you back her vision when others didn't?
So I had a chance to spend quite a bit of time with her at business school, and so get to hear where her vision and conviction came from. It was something that has been long in the making, and she was extremely clear into what the need was and what the opportunity was, and that the friction to get there was very much due to preconceptions and maturity of the consumers and stakeholders sort of thinking, and that it was really important to crush through that to show the real value of the product she was building.
In hindsight, what's one business that you didn't invest in that you wished you could have?
So here in Italy, the team of Lexroom has been doing great progress, great numbers, great execution, and more than anything, obtaining really great feedbacks from its users, which is mainly law firms and lawyers who we interact with regularly. And I think they've delivered an experience and a product to that category that's been extremely valuable. And we couldn't see exactly what the founders saw at the time. And I think that's an opportunity that we missed, unfortunately.
So what advice would you give to founders?
So one advice I keep on repeating to founders is bootstrap as long as you can. Only really raise money and get the additional pressure from having investors on board once you've validated your vision and you're really sure this is where you want to throw yourself in. So extend that bootstrap period as long as you can.
Right. And what do you think about seed strapping, which is becoming a more regular thing that's talked about across Europe?
You mean extending your seed as much as possible?
Yeah, or people just raise the seed and they don't want to raise again.
Look, I think we're seeing it in our portfolio, especially with AI and agents replacing some talent. We see Runway being extended, and we see the opportunity to build great levels of top line with less cash burn. So until you really validated that you can deliver the return on investment of the extra capital with the same level of margin than you did until then, we are actually quite supportive of that, though it shouldn't limit your ambition. So it's not because you can that you can suddenly become a lifestyle business with less ambition. So we don't want that to reduce your ambition.
So outside of being a VC, who is Lorenzo Franzi?
So Lorenzo Franzi is a family man, father of 2 young kids, who actually loves to travel and do adventures now more and more as a family rather than as a couple or an individual. I'm a multicultural person. I grew up in Belgium, lived for a long time in England, and now in Italy since a few years. So I love to keep that multicultural access from eating different types of cuisines, traveling, which I mentioned, meeting people from different sort of cultures or other influences from exhibition, etc. So I like to be a multifaceted type of person who is quite active. Sport is a very sort of present element in my life. And so I like to sort of spend time as well with friends and family while doing activities.
Right. And so if you weren't a VC, what would you be?
I often ask myself the question, and I concluded I think I would be an architect.
An architect?
So I like the sort of designing what the future could look like.
Yeah.
And you need to map the steps or the plans to get there. Maybe it has something in common with venture, but it's a skill and an activity that I absolutely admire. And I think it has an element of beauty that you leave even after one's passing, which I think is a great element.
What books would you recommend to others?
One book that I read recently, actually, that is linked to the job I do, but that I found very eye-opening, is Outliers.
Outliers.
I think it's very impressive when you take some distance and you look at some situations, some profiles, some incredible champions, that the context, the odds, had a certain impact on that. So I've valued that book a lot. And maybe the other book that's very personal to me is when I was 16, the first business book I read was the biography of Richard Branson at the time called Losing My Virginity.
Great book.
And since then, I think I've read it another 2 or 3 times.
It's an awesome book.
And I was 16 at the time, I think, or 15. And it marked myself as what, ambition, not taking no for an answer. And I think Richard Branson has been an inspiring entrepreneur for many, many others. And that book had a big impact on me.
I think in that book alone, just discovering the grit it took and resilience to get to where he is
100%.
Incredible.
100%.
And so when we think about, TV shows and movies, what are your favorites?
So I like this. I'll start with a local Italian movie, which I think is internationally known but quite incredible. Is La Vita è Bella.
Yeah.
I think it's an emotional movie. I think it's a movie that show how humans and humor and a smile and belief can help going through very difficult journeys. So it's been a movie that really I've been watching multiple times since. On the business side, I like The Big Short. I think it's again, showing courage, showing not being scared to see and do what others don't always see or want to do. And then again, bridging maybe a bit back to Italy, I watched The Godfather quite a few times as well.
So what's the craziest thing you've seen during your time as a VC?
So the few times I look at Polymarket and you see what people are willing to bet on, and some of the bets people are willing to put their own money on is pretty crazy.
What's the craziest bet you've seen?
I think the one that comes to mind is one where someone mentioned when Jesus would come back to Earth.
Oh, wow. You can put money on that?
You could when I saw it, yes.
So Lorenzo, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a pleasure having you on the show and wishing you and the rest of the Italian Founders Fund all the best in the future.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to be here.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Raising Europe. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, remember, your biggest edge as a founder comes down to resource management. If you want to stop guessing, head on over to getfrontierstack.com right now and join the waitlist. Lock in your priority pass now so you can grow faster and spend smarter. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this episode with a fellow founder who's building right now. Until next week, keep building, and we'll see you soon.